The air in the room was heavy with an awkward tension after Kwame walked out. Wamba stood frozen at the edge of the bed, his mind reeling. It felt like a wound had opened between him and his father, a wound that hadn't been there before. His heart ached with fear of the unknown. What would this mean for them? Would Kwame see him differently now, disappointed, even hurt by what he had seen? Next to him, Danso's breathing was shaky, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to button up his shirt. Backwards. His movements were rushed, fumbled, as if trying to escape the weight of guilt that now filled the room. "I'm sorry," Danso whispered, his voice barely audible. He swallowed hard, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." Wamba's heart clenched at the sight of Danso like this, shoulders stiff, eyes downcast, struggling with emotions. He could see the guilt and fear etched into his love's face, and for a moment, Wamba forgot his own fear. He couldn't let Danso take on all the blame. "Hey," Wamba said softly, stepping closer. His voice was gentle, soothing, even though his own heart was hammering in his chest. "It's not your fault. We'll figure this out. Together." Danso didn't respond right away, his fingers still fumbling with the buttons of his shirt. He looked so out of place, so vulnerable. Wamba couldn't help but reach out, his fingers brushing gently against Danso's trembling hands. He stilled them with his touch, taking over the task of fixing Danso's shirt. Danso's eyes lifted to Wamba's face, and there was a glimmer of gratitude in them, even though fear still lingered. As Wamba gently buttoned the shirt correctly, his hands moved with care, slow and deliberate, as if each button held the promise of comfort. When he was done, Wamba ran his fingers down the fabric, smoothing it out before leaning in and placing a tender kiss on Danso's cheek. "Thank you," Danso whispered, his voice a little steadier now, though still soft. Wamba gave him a small smile, trying to reassure him, even though uncertainty gnawed at his own heart. "We'll be okay," he murmured. "We have each other." Danso nodded quietly, his eyes locking onto Wamba's, finding some solace in them. He reached up and squeezed Wamba's hand, a silent message of support. They were in this together, no matter what. After a moment, Wamba drew in a deep breath, his voice growing quieter. "Wait for me here," he whispered. "I need to talk to him." Danso's brow furrowed with concern. "Are you sure?" Wamba gave a small nod, though his heart was heavy with the weight of the conversation ahead. He squeezed Danso's hand gently, then let go. "I need to." With one last reassuring look, Danso patted Wamba's shoulders, offering silent support before letting him go. As Wamba moved through the palace halls, his thoughts weighed him down like a leaden cloud. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft sounds of his footsteps. What would Kwame say? Was he angry with Wamba? Would things ever be the same between them? What did Kwame's silence earlier mean? As Wamba neared the part of the palace where his parents spent most of their time, he suddenly stopped. Voices drifted from the room ahead, but they weren't calm or gentle. They were raised, sharp, filled with frustration and hurt. Wamba's heart clenched, his feet glued to the spot as he realized his parents were fighting. His body instinctively moved to hide by the door, his heart hammering as the angry exchange between Kwame and King Adebayo became clearer. Wamba pressed his back against the cold wall just outside the doorway and listened to the rising voices inside the room. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the intensity of the argument between his parents drew him in like a magnet. His body tensed, every word filling him with a sense of dread. Kwame's voice came first, sharp and filled with anger. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about me not wanting more children. It's about you being with someone else. You want a biological child, Adebayo, and I get that. But you're asking me to be okay with you lying with a woman. Do you have any idea what that feels like? It's a betrayal. There was a pause, and then King Adebayo's voice followed, deep and strained, laced with frustration. It's not about betrayal, Kwame. It's about legacy. This kingdom needs an heir, someone to carry on my bloodline. I love you, but this is something I can't ignore. Wamba's heart sank. He didn't understand all of it, but he knew it was about something deeper, something that was pulling his parents apart. The thought of his family breaking down made Wamba feel like the ground beneath his feet was slipping away. You think I don't understand? Kwame's voice trembled with emotion, as if he was fighting to keep control. You think I don't know what it means to have a legacy? You already have a family, me, Wamba, Aria, or are we not enough? The silence that followed was like a blade cutting through the air. Wamba's breath caught in his throat. He had never heard his father speak like this, his voice so raw and filled with hurt. I love our children, King Adebayo said after a long pause, his voice quieter now, heavy with emotion. But you know how the world works, Kwame. Blood matters. It shouldn't, but it does. People will always question if the throne is truly ours without a blood heir. Wamba's heart raced even faster as the weight of his father's words sank in. Was this what had been causing all the tension between them? The fear that he and Aria, adopted children, were not enough? The thought stung, twisting deep in his chest. Kwame's next words were cold, biting. So, you'll sleep with someone else for the sake of what the world wants? What about us, Adebayo? What about our marriage, our promise to stay faithful to each other? You're asking me to stand by while it's like you're willing to throw everything we have away just to have a child when we already have two. I'm not throwing anything away. King Adebayo's voice rose again, frustration bubbling to the surface. I'm trying to protect the future of this kingdom. By being with someone else? You think that protects our future? You think that protects what we've built? Kwame's voice was tight, choked with emotion. You're not listening. You haven't been listening since this idea got into your head. Another heavy silence followed, but this time it felt different, thicker, more painful. Wamba could hardly breathe, torn between wanting to run away and needing to know how this would end. Then Kwame's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. And by the way, your son is sleeping with my cousin Danso. But I'm not sure you care about that, considering you're too busy thinking about cheating on me to have a biological child. The word struck Wamba like a slap. His stomach twisted, his heart dropping into a pit of confusion and shame. He could barely think, his thoughts swirling in chaos as the argument inside the room escalated. King Adebayo's voice came back, but now it was cold, filled with anger. Yes, Kwame, walk away. That's what you always do. Every time things get hard, you walk out. It's your answer to every problem, isn't it? The sound of footsteps followed, and before Wamba could move, the door swung open. Kwame stormed out of the room, his face flushed with anger, but he stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Wamba standing there. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Wamba stood frozen, unable to move under Kwame's furious gaze. He didn't know what to say, how to explain that he had heard everything. His throat tightened, fear and hurt swirling inside him. Finally, in a small voice, he whispered, "Papa, we need to talk." Kwame's eyes softened just for a second before the anger returned. "Not now, Wamba!" he snapped, his voice harsher than it had ever been when speaking to him. Wamba flinched, his chest tightening as Kwame stormed past him, leaving him standing alone in the hallway. The sound of his father's footsteps echoed through the corridor, each one feeling like a painful reminder of the distance now between them. Wamba's shoulders slumped, a deep ache settling into his bones. Everything felt wrong. His parents were fighting about things he didn't fully understand. Kwame was furious with him, and he had never felt more alone. His heart ached in ways he couldn't even put into words. Was Kwame regretting taking him in? He wanted to go in and speak to King Adebayo, to ask for reassurance, but something inside him held him back. He was too afraid of being turned away, of hearing something he couldn't handle. With a heavy heart, Wamba turned and went in search of Danso, the only person who could give him comfort now. Danso stood in the quiet hallway, waiting for Wamba. He had tried staying in the room, but his worry about how the conversation between Wamba and Kwame was going to go made it impossible to sit still. He paced restlessly, thinking about the look on Kwame's face when he left the room earlier. And though Wamba had reassured him, a gnawing feeling crept over Danso, the sense that his presence was causing trouble. Suddenly, a small sting hit his leg, and he looked down, startled. Another tiny pebble struck his shin, followed by a third. Danso spun around, his eyes landing on a young girl standing a few feet away, her small hands clutching a handful of stones. Aria. Her face was set in a scowl, her dark eyes burning with a fierce determination as she glared at him. She shot another pebble at him, aiming to drive him away. "Aria, stop!" Danso exclaimed, stepping forward with confusion. "What's your problem?" Aria crossed her arms, her pout deepening. "You," she said flatly, her voice filled with defiance. "You're my problem. You've stolen my brother, and now he doesn't play with me anymore." Danso knelt down, so his eyes were level with hers. "I've stolen Wamba?" he asked gently, though her words stung. "Ever since you came," Aria continued, her voice trembling with frustration, "he spent all his time with you. He didn't come to play with me like he used to. He didn't come to tell me stories about the school. He's been with you since he arrived." She kicked a pebble with her foot, her anger fading slightly into sadness. "I want my brother back." Danso's heart softened. "I'm sorry, Aria," Danso said sincerely. He hadn't even considered that she might be feeling this way. "I didn't mean to take him away from you. I just..." He hesitated, not knowing what else to say. She studied his face for a long moment, as if searching for any sign of dishonesty. Then, as if deciding she had had enough of him, she turned on her heel. "Well, I still don't like you," she declared stubbornly, and began walking away, her small form stiff with irritation. Danso watched her go, unsure of what to say, when suddenly Wamba appeared at the end of the hallway, his face pale and his eyes full of worry. The moment Danso saw him, everything else melted away. Aria's hostility, the tension in the air, it all seemed distant compared to the deep concern he felt for Wamba. Wamba's steps were slow, and his eyes were distant, as if he had just witnessed something terrible. The weight of the argument with his parents hung over him like a dark cloud. "Wamba?" Danso called softly, rushing toward him. "What's wrong?" Without a word, Wamba collapsed into Danso's arms, his body shaking with the force of emotions he had been trying to hold back. Danso wrapped his arms around him, gently pulling him close, whispering reassurances. "I'm here, I've got you." Wamba's head rested on Danso's shoulder, and for a long moment he simply let himself be held. Danso's warmth, his quiet strength, was the only thing keeping him grounded. Wamba closed his eyes, trying to forget the harsh words he had overheard, trying to push away the fear that his parents were falling apart and that he was part of the problem. "Let's go outside," Danso whispered after a moment, his hand softly stroking Wamba's back. "Get some air. You need to tell me what happened." Wamba nodded weakly, letting Danso lead him toward the palace gardens. They walked in silence, the cool morning air brushing against their skin, the sun bright overhead. Danso found a bench beneath a large blooming tree, and they sat down, side by side, their hands clasped together. Danso turned to Wamba, his brow furrowed with concern. "Wamba, please say something." Wamba's lips trembled as he tried to speak, his throat tight with the weight of everything that was going on. Finally, he whispered, his voice barely audible, "I overheard my parents fighting." Danso's grip tightened on Wamba's hand. What were they fighting about? Wamba took a shaky breath, his gaze falling to the ground. "About me, about Arewa, about everything, Papa. He wants a biological child, Danso. He says we're not enough. He wants someone of his blood to take the throne." Danso's heart sank. "He said that?" Wamba shook his head quickly, wiping at his eyes. "Not exactly, but it feels like that's what he meant. Like we're not good enough because we're not his blood." Danso's chest tightened with anger. "That's not true. You are his son. You and Arewa are his family. Blood doesn't make you any less loved." Wamba's eyes welled with tears, his voice breaking. "Then why are they fighting? Why does it feel like they're slipping away from us? And now, with what's happening between you and me, it's my fault, Danso. I'm the reason they're arguing. I'm the reason everything's falling apart." "Wamba, no." Danso cupped Wamba's face in his hands, forcing him to look into his eyes. "This is not your fault. None of this is your fault." Wamba's lips trembled as he looked back at Danso, tears clinging to his lashes. "I'm afraid they'll send us away. What if they don't want us anymore? What if they're getting a divorce?" The raw fear in Wamba's voice cut Danso deeply. He could feel the weight of Wamba's insecurity, the deep-rooted fear of losing everything he had come to love. Danso had no easy answer, no way to promise that everything would be fine. But he knew one thing for certain. "I'm not going anywhere, Wamba," he whispered fiercely. "I'll always be here for you. I won't let anything happen to you or Arewa. I swear it." Wamba's eyes softened, his fear easing just a little at the strength in Danso's words. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against Danso's. For a moment, they stayed like that, wrapped in each other's warmth, the garden around them quiet and still. The rest of the day was heavy, the weight of Wamba's fears hanging over them like a cloud, but as the sun began to set, Danso decided that he couldn't let Wamba carry that sadness any longer. He couldn't bear to see the light in Wamba's eyes dimmed by worry. He had overheard the palace servants talking about the big festival in the kingdom tonight, a night of dancing, laughter, music, and celebration. It sounded like the perfect way to lift Wamba's spirits, to remind him of the joy and beauty in life, despite the storm brewing at home. "Wamba," Danso said softly, turning to him as they sat together in Wamba's room. It was just starting to get dark. "I want us to run away." Wamba blinked, surprised. "Run away?" "Yes," Danso said, his lips curving into a small smile. "Well, not forever. I want us to escape just for tonight. There's a festival happening, and I was thinking we could go. No worries, no fears, just fun, just you and me." Wamba hesitated, his heart still heavy with everything that had happened earlier. But the way Danso looked at him, so full of love and determination, made it impossible to refuse. "All right," he whispered, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I actually meant to take you to the festival. It just slipped my mind with everything going on." Danso grinned happily. "Then let's go." They both stood, shoving a few items into a bag, and Wamba followed Danso to the back wall of the palace. This time, it was Danso who took the lead, climbing over the stone wall with surprising grace, while Wamba watched, his heart swelling with affection for the boy who was trying so hard to make him smile. Once they were over the wall, the sounds of the festival began to fill the air. Laughter, music, and the rhythmic beat of drums echoed from the town ahead, and the streets were alive with people dressed in colorful, traditional clothing, celebrating under the stars. As they walked hand in hand toward the festivities, Wamba felt his spirits lift, even if just a little. The joy and vibrancy of the festival were contagious, and for the first time that day, he allowed himself to feel lighter. The town was lit with glowing lanterns, and the streets were bustling with people dancing to the rhythm of drums and flutes. Women wore bright, flowing dresses that twirled as they moved, while men beat on drums, their voices rising in song. Children ran through the streets, their laughter filling the air, and the smell of roasted meat and sweet pastries filled every corner. Wamba's eyes widened as they entered the heart of the festival. "This is incredible," he murmured, his worries momentarily forgotten. "I've missed these nights. I used to come every time before Aria and I moved to the palace." "I'm glad you like it," Danso called out over the noise, his voice warm with affection. He led Wamba through the crowded streets, weaving between dancers and musicians, their fingers never parting. The music pulsed around them, and as they walked deeper into the festival, the tension that had held Wamba's shoulders began to ease. They paused near a small group of dancers, watching as people moved in circles, their feet moving to the rhythm of the drums. Danso turned to Wamba, his eyes twinkling in the lantern light. "Let's join them." Wamba blinked, his heart skipping a beat. "You want to dance with all these people watching?" "Yes," Danso said, tugging him gently into the circle of dancers, "just for the fun of it. No thinking, no worrying, just us." Before Wamba could protest, Danso pulled him into a slow, easy rhythm, their bodies moving in sync with the music. At first, Wamba was hesitant, conscious of the people around them. But as the drums beat louder and the music swirled, he found himself laughing, his feet moving with Danso's, their laughter mingling with the music. They danced under the stars, their movements slow and intimate, their hands never letting go of each other. For the first time that day, Wamba felt truly free. He spun in Danso's arms, laughing as they moved together, their bodies close, their hearts even closer. "I needed this," Wamba whispered as they danced, his voice full of emotion. Danso smiled, his hand gently touching Wamba's back. "You deserve to be happy, Wamba. I'll always remind you of that." As the night wore on, the two of them wandered through the town, trying different foods from the stalls, sharing sweet pastries and fruit, and drinking a little too much palm wine. Their laughter filled the streets as they stumbled through the festival, tipsy and carefree. At one point, they found themselves sneaking into a quiet, wooded area just outside the festival. The music from the festival still echoed in the distance, but here, under the trees, everything felt quieter, more intimate. Danso pulled Wamba close, wrapping his arms around him as they swayed to the distant music. "Stay with me," he whispered softly. Wamba smiled, resting his head on Danso's shoulder as they moved together in the soft moonlight, pressed tightly as there were no eyes of judgment around. The worries that had plagued Wamba's heart vanished in the calm of the night. "You're so good at making things better," Wamba murmured, his voice soft. Danso pressed a kiss to Wamba's forehead, his heart swelling with love. "And I always will." As the night deepened, the festival began to quiet down, the sounds of laughter and music fading into the distance as Wamba and Danso wandered further from the festival. The warm night air brushed against their skin as they walked along a hidden path that led toward the ocean, the gentle sound of waves lapping against the shore, growing louder with each step. Wamba led Danso by the hand, guiding him toward the beach. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silver glow over the dark water, making it sparkle like a sea of diamonds. The stars above were bright, like tiny beacons of light in the endless night. "Where are we going?" Danso asked softly, though his heart already knew. He felt the tug of excitement, the gentle pull of something tender, something intimate waiting for them. "I thought we could end the night here," Wamba replied, his voice warm, filled with affection. "Just us, under the stars. Not many people know about this beach. My friends and I found it a while ago, and we come here to get away from everything else." When they reached the beach, it was empty, quiet, just the two of them standing on the shore, the waves softly crashing against the sand. The water shimmered as the stars twinkled above them, and the waves whispered softly against the shore. Wamba and Danso held each other and drifted into a peaceful sleep. But far away from the quiet beach, in the grand halls of King Adebayo's palace, a different kind of stillness loomed, a growing dread. Kwame had calmed down after his earlier anger, his mind troubled with guilt over his harsh words to Wamba. He wandered through the palace halls, searching for his son to make amends. Wamba had always been so good, so obedient, and a little too mature for his age. Kwame had never raised his voice to him before, and now his heart was weighed down with regret. But when he reached Wamba's room and Danso's and found both empty, his chest tightened. Something felt amiss. Where could he have gone at this hour? He muttered under his breath. As he made his way through the corridors, a maid passed by, and Kwame stopped her. "Have you seen Wamba?" Kwame asked, his tone more urgent than he'd intended. The maid blinked, caught off guard. "Oh yes, Your Highness. I saw him earlier with Prince Danso. They were sneaking off together. Looked like they were running away. They packed a bag." Kwame's breath caught in his throat. "And you said nothing?" The panic set in like a tidal wave. He turned on his heel, moving faster now, his heart pounding in his chest. He found King Adebayo in their private quarters, and with a tremor in his voice, told him what he had just learned. "I think Wamba and Danso ran away, Adebayo." King Adebayo's face turned pale. "Ran away?" "We need to find them," Kwame interrupted, his voice strained with worry. "Now." In a matter of minutes, the entire palace was thrown into disarray. Servants were dispatched, guards sent out in the dead of night, and the once peaceful halls buzzed with frantic energy. Every corner of the palace was searched. Every path outside the palace walls was checked, but there was no sign of Wamba and Danso. The king's most trusted guard returned, shaking his head. "They're nowhere to be found." Kwame's heart clenched tighter with each passing second, the worry threatening to suffocate him. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Wamba. He could still see the look of hurt on Wamba's face when he snapped at him this morning. King Adebayo, normally calm and composed, now paced with furrowed brows. The palace was a storm of rising fear, and the night, which had been peaceful just moments ago, was now heavy with uncertainty. "Find them!" King Adebayo ordered. "We need to find them!"